Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, everybody at home, and welcome to Houselights, House of Gerwig, the final entry so far of Greta Gerwig's filmography as solo director. Today, we are talking about 2023's Barbie, the massive pink phenomenon that was one half of Barbenheimer. And I am your co-host, Tristan Riddell, and with me, as they are every single week, is Dr. Sci-Fi himself, Darren Moser, and the one and only John Mills. Are you guys ready to get into a world of plastic and surround yourself with the neon glowing color that is Barbie pink?
Sure am, Ken. How about you, Ken?
Yeah, that's a good idea, Ken. Very good.
All right, Ken. Let's let Alan take it away here.
You know what?
Ooh.
I'm cool with that.
Ooh.
I'm 100% okay with that.
Surprisingly cool because, look, cards on the table. Alan's something of a scene stealer. So,
And a fantastic martial artist.
Yes, that's true.
Apparently,
Go
Michael
Go
Cera.
round, Alan.
Yeah.
one of the reasons why they were able to do that so well is because Michael Cera learned so much of the martial arts with his time with Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, no kidding. That's pretty
that
great.
Apparently, he kept it up. He continued training and learning and everything
cool.
like that. And so he's just like, "Oh yeah, I got this.
That's pretty great. That's good. I did not know that tidbit. That you like to see. I think it speaks to so many things, but I know that the conversation is just firing up. So I'm sure we'll talk about Alan in more depth as we go.
So yeah, I mean, okay. This film, if you haven't seen this film, you've heard of this film. If this is one of those movies that everybody was talking about. Everybody was, whether you hated it, whether you loved it, whether you yourself didn't even care. People were talking. It was in the news, it was in the media, it was on, all over Reddit constantly, it was on Twitter. And this was an absolute phenomenon. This was a massive hit. Now, Darren, can you tell us how much this made?
Oh, can I? It had around $145 million budget, some ungodly amount of marketing, I'm sure, but it made 10 times its budget with 1.4 billion with a B. I think it's like the 11th highest grossing movie of all time at this point. I don't know if that's for inflation, probably not. But
Probably
yeah,
not.
It made a lot of money for Mattel.
And yeah, a lot of this is one of those films that it makes you wonder how much money it would have made without Oppenheimer. Now, obviously, Barbie lifted Oppenheimer more than Oppenheimer lifted Barbie. But because of the whole dichotomy of it and the whole Barbenheimer phenomenon, I'm going to be saying phenomenon a lot tonight. It really makes you wonder. I wish there was a way that we could figure out how much they would have made individually.
In all honesty, and this could be controversial because I'm such a Nolan fan, I think it was a one-way street. In all honesty.
You think it was a one? You don't think Oppenheimer had any effect on Barbie?
I do not think that the Oppenheimer audience was. Maybe there was some sliver of it, but not enough to have impacted its gross income. I have no data. What am I going to do? Disprove a negative sort of thing. But
yeah.
I think that Barbie became such a phenomenon, and then people ironically started saying, "How is Oppenheimer coming out?" And it became like a thing where I think the people that were interested in Barbie said, "Oh, that'd be a laugh." And that's the way I perceive it, is that it's a more of a one-way street. And I think that, for instance, one of my daughters got caught up in that. She saw Oppenheimer with me in the theater specifically so she could do Barbenheimer. She saw Barbie opening weekend. And then when I was getting around to Oppenheimer, I was like, "Hey, you want to go?" She's like, "Oh, Barbenheimer. Yeah, I'll go." So that's my anecdotal evidence of that.
I mean, I feel like you have to be more right than wrong on that one. I mean, it's clear that Barbie was the dominant force here when it came to just even cultural impact, finances. Like the only reason why Oppenheimer even got close to $1 billion was because of the Barbie effect.
Unquestionably. I mean, a 3-hour biopic about the guy who was the project manager for the atom bomb isn't really a crowd pleaser. Let's be honest. So
I love how you, quote unquote, demoted him down to project manager just to prove the point.
I did not demote him. I'm talking about history.
I said quote unquote.
Okay.
Quote unquote.
All right.
Some would say father of the atomic bomb or inventor. You're like, nope. Project manager.
Hey,
he was middle management.
You need a good project manager to get any project off the ground. I complimented him, if anything. So,
Darren, when was the first time you saw this movie?
That would be today. I saw it for this wonderful podcast, and I didn't really have an interest in seeing it last year. And I think I do want to add to our discussion on the Barbie effect. I do think it also happened to capitalize on kind of that post-COVID ramp up again into theaters. Like if this had been 2 years prior, very different story. But it was just detached enough from we don't go to theaters anymore to like, hey, I want to go to the theater. I want to see something fun. And Barbie filled that niche perfectly. So I think that's a factor. I don't want to say that's the only factor in the success of this movie, but I'm sure it's a piece of it.
I think that's fair. I think that another factor to bring in, and I'll go ahead and call it, I'm not being dismissive in any way, but sort of like what I would call the Titanic factor. Because one of the things that made Titanic such a monster hit was that there was a film that was appealing to an audience that doesn't typically get something served up to them as a point of interest sort of thing. They always attributed Titanic's massive box office that there was an untapped audience that it appealed to. And I'd say that Barbie actually managed to pull that off as well, where it's very clearly something that's going to appeal to an audience that isn't typically appealed to with your big Dune blockbuster or a Christopher Nolan film and stuff like that. Like this is
Top Gun.
Yeah, Top Gun Maverick. Yeah, that's a good example too. So I mean, I think all of those things were factors, but the thing is, you don't get to 1.4 something billion dollars without actually landing it. Like that'll get you a big opening weekend, maybe a second weekend through inertia, but to be a sustained hit the way this wound up being, that you can't take away from it. Like you can get the audience in the first couple of weeks, but word of mouth will kill you in a heartbeat. So obviously word of mouth was strong with Barbie.
I think it made $1 million a day for 49 days.
Something like that. Yeah.
It was something like that. And the only thing to do longer was The Hangover with 52 days, which is crazy to me.
Considering our discussion about the director category and that it was the director of The Hangover went on to direct Joker and somehow got the nod during the little, like there's, that's sort of a weird history thing there.
There's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's something.
There's something there.
So, John, when did you first see this? This was an interesting thing, right?
Yeah, I was going to save myself for Houselights because, side note to the audience, that's how much I care about you all, is I missed this on its theatrical run. And I didn't make any specific choice not to go. It was literally the way my life is. I had a choice to either see Christopher Nolan's latest film or Barbie. And I'm going to be honest with you, Christopher Nolan's going to win 100% of the time. You could put him up. I mean, there are very few people that Nolan's not going to beat at this point. But so then inertia carries on. And as we joke about all the time, then my queue just doesn't ever fall down. So I'm just stuck there the whole time, meaning to get to something, and I'll get to it. And then I went on a cruise, very brief cruise, to celebrate my mother-in-law's birthday. That was a big, odometer turning sort of birthday. So we got a whole bunch of family together. We took a group cruise over a weekend. And one of the nights they were having Barbenheimer at the theater by the pool, like the big movie screen on the top deck. And my daughters could not wait. They were like, oh, yeah, you're going. And I was like, but the live show that's going, and they're like, no, we're going to Barbie. I'm like, you've seen Barbie. I haven't. Who cares? And it actually became a point of contention for the briefest amount of time with everybody else in the group. Was like, no, I can see Barbie at home. Why would I see it here? I'm going to go to the live show. But I'm an indulgent father, and when my daughters really want me to do something, I'll go out there and sit on a pool deck chair and watch a movie with $4 popcorn. It's what you do.
I myself didn't see this in theaters. I missed it. It wasn't really something that compelled me to go. But it was just one of those things where I was just like, oh, I can wait, till till streaming. Like, it's no big deal. But my wife, she went with some other friends, and like I think some other mom friends, and they all wore pink. Like they did the whole thing. They got the bucket, and they did everything that you're supposed to do. Like there was that thing where everyone said, like, you got to do X, Y, and Z. You got to do this. You got to do that. And they did that, and she had a fantastic time. And she came home, and she was praising it, just saying that it was awesome. She's like, it was touching. It was made for women by women, and she told me all the best parts. She's she was just like going through it, just because it was a movie she couldn't stop talking about. And I said, I was like, wow. I was like, I'm really looking forward to this now. And she told me the Zack Snyder joke, and I lost it. I absolutely lost it with how she told the Zack Snyder joke. And then when I saw it when it came to streaming, and I was and we watched together, and then my wife kept trying to convince my 7-year-old to watch it, and she's like, nah, I don't want to watch it. And she's like, you watch Barbie's movies all the time. She's like, yeah, but those are cartoons. I like the cartoons. I don't want to watch a real life action Barbie. And we finally got her to agree to watch it, and then she watched it like 3 times in a row, that week. And she fell in love with it too. So this was when this movie was announced, I was like, oh, they're making a live action Barbie. They've been trying to make that for like 15 years. And then it said it was going to be written and directed by Greta Gerwig. I was like, the Lady Bird person? Like, I was like, okay, now I'm interested. That's what got me interested. I was like, Barbie movie, don't care. A Barbie movie by Greta Gerwig? Yeah, that you got my attention.
Well, I think you said something, or somebody said something in the previous weeks about how, basically production companies are more willing to go with the sort of like the untested tentpole director. And Gerwig isn't untested. She's obviously, award nominee, award winner. I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying like this was a very smart, but also relatively low risk move for the studio, specifically because if the thing bombs, you blame the director. They weren't ready for the role. If the thing's a hit, you're a genius for picking the wonderkind director who's now got a massive career, blah, 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 blah. Like it literally, I hate to break it down like that, but I guarantee you that was at least part of the decision-making process was like, if this thing goes sideways, how can we sidestep blame? And I think that what they did was they wound up getting, based on the results, I think they go right into the best possible choice they had in that situation, but also kudos to Margot Robbie for recognizing, because she's a producer on this, recognizing the potential there and the angle of attack to get the movie made. And, I think that there's also a factor that Mattel has burned itself on movie adaptations before of its toys, right? Aren't they responsible for Battleship? And so I think they understood that they needed a fresh approach to the
trailer
material.
didn't start as from the studio that brought you Battleship.
Exactly. The studio that brought you nothing else. We didn't do anything before this movie. This is a brand new idea that we had.
Well, but like you said, John, I mean, yeah, we're a director discussion podcast, but you cannot talk about the creation of this movie without talking about Margot Robbie. Like it is her and Greta made this, at least on the marketing front. That's the vibe I got, is that as much as it was Greta's movie, that Margot had a massive hand in every step in the being the face of it as well.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that probably stung a bit. Was Margot Robbie got plenty of headline credit, but I don't think that the average audience member understood how much she had to do behind the scenes as well to move things forward. And Tristan, you're always fond of saying, it's like, well, there's a reason the producers are the ones that accept Best Picture, and it's like I sincerely hope that not only is Gerwig enjoying something of an explosive career growth and potential here, but also Robbie is, she's a player now. That I hate using
her
that term,
company,
but she's a player.
Yeah, her company is legit. Like she is a savvy businesswoman in the industry, especially with how young she is, and she's been able to parlay a great on-camera presence to power behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's Lucky Chap is the name of her production company. I do believe so. If I'll confirm that once I'm done speaking, but I'm pretty sure it's Lucky Chap. Like, yeah, it's gonna. She not only did this movie make. Oh, I'm getting the thumbs up from Darren. Yes, it is Lucky Chap. Fantastic. It is estimated. Now I know not everything is money, but it is estimated that with her being an actress, the lead actress in it, a producer, and also negotiating with Warner Brothers, she gets a percentage of the back end. She got a $50 million take home. That's more than what Downey Jr. got for Endgame.
Yeah,
that's insane. That's insane.
Oh, I mean, it's great, honestly, because
no, it's great. I think it's fantastic.
No, but I'm saying specifically because we're so tortured with hearing about, Schwarzenegger made $20 million for whatever role, and it's like, yeah, all he did was he walked on set and did his thing. No, I'm not like trashing Schwarzenegger or anything.
Yeah,
like
he
that.
got butts in the
like
seats,
Robbie,
but
no.
Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah, but
he
Robbie was doing right. She was doing real necessary business work behind the scenes, and it's like I feel better about her getting a lucrative payday like that than I do about somebody who's like, oh, I'll do your movie if you give me 20 million in profit points, or somebody like Brando, where it's like,
oh my gosh, yeah,
I'm going to be on screen for 8 seconds and I'm going to get a huge payday. Like, I'd rather somebody like Margot Robbie makes out in the end of it and becomes the player.
Do you know what's crazy is that Margot Robbie decided to produce the film before she was a lead actress, and she didn't say, I want to be a lead actress. Because sometimes that'll happen where someone will, find a script, like someone will give them the script and say like, hey, I want you to, like, this happens with Witherspoon a lot, where somebody will hand her a script and they say like, oh, we want you to star in this. And she's like, oh, I would, this is a great project. I want to produce this as well. Oftentimes it's not producer first, then actor and actress. With her, that was the case, where she met with Greta Gerwig and she wanted Lucky Chap to produce it, and then you will not believe this, who was originally cast, or who was the original hopeful for Barbie. Can either of you guess who was originally supposed to be Barbie?
To quote Macho Man Randy Savage, I got no idea.
Gal Gadot.
Oh, wow. That's really different.
Wouldn't that have been atrocious?
I wouldn't necessarily say atrocious. Again, I can't prove one way or the other, maybe, but I don't see anything in her body of work that I've watched that would indicate she could carry this film the way Robbie did.
To give Gal Gadot, whatever, the benefit of the doubt, the only good role that she's ever had is the first Wonder Woman film. And because she played a fish out of water. So potentially, if I was going to be extremely generous, because I personally believe, I think she's a horrible actress. To be generous, she could play another fish out of water like she did with Wonder Woman here, maybe. But I think for scheduling, or she couldn't commit or something like that, she wasn't able to. And so that's when Gerwig said, okay, I want you, Margot Robbie, to be the lead. With all that said, with all the behind the scenes stuff and Margot Robbie being a producer and, bringing about the success that is Barbie, I think we would be remiss if we didn't focus on the main aspect that most everybody thinks about. And that is Margot Robbie as Barbie in front of the camera. So, John, what did you think about her performance overall?
I thought it was very good. She understood the assignment. I mean, obviously, if she's the producer, she understands the assignment. One would hope so. But she delivered what. This is the thing. This is the thing that sucks. Is the way I'm about to phrase this is going to sound dismissive, although it's not.
Oh man, I can't wait.
No, she delivered what the role needed. She delivered the type of the type of witty, dry delivery that wink at the camera deserves, so that it doesn't get sugary or too transparent. Like I would point to, for instance, a scene where they're in the dance party and she goes, "You guys ever think about dying?" And her face freezes as she realizes what she just said. And that is, that's an acting trick to pull off, not to make it look like an act, like to make it look natural to the character that you're portraying or whatever, which seems sort of silly in the context of you're playing basically, Toy Story at that point, like a live action Toy Story, in that sense of like a toy realizing the existential reality.
And then she just threw me away.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's dismissive at all. I don't think that's dismissive at all. I think that's great. I think one thing that I thought about with what you're talking about is when she delivered the line, when I can't remember who asked it, but they said, they're like, "Where do the Kens live? Or where does Ken live?" And she goes, "I don't know." Like she never really thought about it before, and they just go wherever they go, and they don't care. And it was delivered perfectly. Yeah, I think I am very much a fan of, like, when it was announced that that Barbie was being made and that it was Greta Gerwig. As I said earlier, I was like, okay, now I'm interested. And when they said that Margot Robbie was going to play Barbie, I was like, well, who else would it have been?
It's a fair question. And I know I mentioned Schwarzenegger before, but like, if Schwarzenegger gets a starring role like this, he's literally just walking on set, having his dialogue guy working, "I'll be back somewhere," and he's mailing it in and he's walking out. Robbie doesn't mail it in. Robbie obviously cares about the material, and that's necessary for this main character.
She didn't have enough proof of purchases to mail it in, so she just had to bring it every day.
Oh. That's a little toy humor, folks, which you'll only find here on Houselights.
If you were around in the 80s, you would really get that. So, okay, as we move on, because we've talked about Robbie a lot behind the scenes, of course, but as we talk about other performances, one rises to the top. And in some circles, especially if you're in the Academy circle, the one that rises sometimes above Margot Robbie is Ryan Gosling's Ken. Darren, what do you think about him stealing the show, as some people have said?
I mean, I could definitely see it. It in the fact that Margot Robbie was such a shoe-in, like it clicked once you heard her name. You're like, oh, that makes total sense. But Ryan Gosling, it clicked in kind of a double take kind of way. Like, really? And then you think of it for half a second more and you're like, okay, I could see that. And then he brought it. I mean, I think half of America tuned into the Oscars just to see him sing Ken Enough. I'm pretty sure that's a statistic somewhere. Yeah, I'm just Ken. And yeah, no, I enjoyed his performance. It's interesting with these performances because they're not real. Like, they're not playing people the way they're acting, so you have to kind of put on a whole nother layer of performance because you're kind of playing this Beach Ken dim-witted kind of like I talk about relationships, but I have like like a 4-year-old's level of knowledge of that. And so it's really it. And he never changes from that. Like, yeah, he has a small arc, but I don't think he really got a lot out of the real world like Barbie did. Like, I mean, he got some books and horses and the patriarchy, but besides that,
besides all that,
yeah, it's just, I always felt like a kid could easily have just been like, and then Ken says this, and then Barbie says this. Like, that was kind of the level of depth, which I'm not saying is bad. It's just, that's what this movie was. Kind of like the Lego movie, where to a point they're kind of feeling like they're being play acted by a child.
Yeah, I get what you're laying down there. I would say that Ryan Gosling was so long as you cast Ken well, it was inevitable that he would steal the show, because I think his arc is like that of, when you cast the Joker in a Batman movie, you get the right Joker and people are going to talk about the Joker. And
But why?
Yes.
I want to hear why, because that doesn't seem obvious to me. But you said it was obvious to you.
Whenever you yes, whenever I'm not saying that, oh, well, I saw the Barbie movie and it was obvious that Ken would steal it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, when you have a top build character who's got to carry everything along and they're the focal point, then when you get a character that has something a little more, lack of a better word, zany to do, then they're going to steal the show. It's inevitable. It's always going to happen. It's 100% of the time. Darth Vader is not in Star Wars that much, but he's super interesting. And so everybody's like, oh my God, Darth Vader, did you see him? And like I said, the Joker, you cast the right Joker and everybody talks about Heath Ledger. Like, Christian Bale does a great job in The Dark Knight, but everybody talks about Heath Ledger, and it's that sort of thing. It's like, that's what I consider inevitable about it, is that's the type of role that is always going to get the attention, because it's the one that doesn't have the burden of carrying the main arc through.
It's
Gotcha.
an orbiting
Okay.
role. It orbits the sun,
Right.
and thus it can be different and often
Yeah.
memorable.
Okay,
Yes.
I took what you said, like, oh well, if they are ever going to make a Barbie movie, then Ken, of course, would steal the show. Like, I was super confused by that, but no, thank
John's
you for
always
explaining
more
that.
nuanced than that.
Oh, no. Tristan's usually confused by at least one thing I say per show, so that's fine.
That's all right.
I'll lay it on me.
I beg you to explain.
Yes.
To me, I was unabashedly in awe of Ryan Gosling doing Ken. I am legitimately in the camp of he stole the show. Like, he's the one who makes me laugh the hardest. He's the one who makes me laugh the most. I think, John, like you were saying, that Margot Robbie does the heavy lifting. She carries the story. She's the vehicle that we care about. She's the heart. She's the one who we want to follow and we want to see succeed. But Ken is the one that gets the belly laughs, who gets the smiles, and like, just even like the little stuff, like when he wants to have a sleepover because, and do what boyfriend and girlfriends do. She's like, what's that? He's like, I honestly have no idea. But like when she says it's girls' night, it's sleepover night or whatever, and he's walking away, the camera's on the crane, we're zoomed out really far, and he's walking away, and he starts doing that dance that he did earlier in the film, and he's just by himself, and then he just kind of like swings his arm, like, just like, oh shucks, and like, he's by himself, no one's watching except for the audience. It's just little moments like that just make me friggin' lose it.
Another little moment that I enjoy is when he says, I don't remember the exact line, but he's like, my job is beach, right? And he's so legitimately confused by, he doesn't even know what it means, but he knows that it's what his job is beach.
Not surf, not water.
Not a
lifeguard.
Not a lifeguard,
no.
which a lot of people think. It's just beach.
Not the beach,
just beach.
Just beach. And I love how earnest, like when he sneaks in the car when they go to the real world, I love how earnest he is. When he says, it's like, what if there's beach? Okay, you're going to need a professional.
That's right. Yeah. I think that there's another factor there too, though, because it's Ken is the permission to have fun with what's, a pretty weighty through line for, that the Barbie character is carrying on. And people are always going to be attracted to the fun character. It's, it's the same reason that Alan winds up double stealing the scenes that he's in, because Alan's like the ultimate super inside joke. That's like deep knowledge about Barbie, the Barbie line. I didn't know Alan existed before this movie. And I was like, oh, wow, that was really a thing. No kidding. Right. Like that sort of thing. And then the way Sarah plays him every time he's on screen, like look, I say this with all due respect to Mr. Sarah.
And I know exactly what you're going to say.
Basically being Michael Sarah.
He's Michael Sarah.
Michael Sarah as.
You know what you
but
bought
he's the right,
when you get him,
But he was the right choice. like that. If you want to talk about an actor where it's like, oh, we could quibble about who could have played Barbie. We could be like, oh, well, somebody else could have done what Gosling did. Oh, Simu Liu was fine, but this is like, but that character of Alan, I'm like, there is absolutely nobody else I see in that role. There's no one else I can see doing what needs to be done there.
Apparently, Jonathan Groff. It was offered to Jonathan Groff, and he turned it down. And that would have been interesting, but I don't think anywhere near as endearing.
I agree.
Or vulnerable. And with Michael Cera, apparently what happened is that he had a mutual friend with Greta Gerwig. He found out that they were doing the Barbie movie, and he got her email from that friend, emailed her and said, "Hey, I would love to be a part of this. Is there anything I can do?" He's like, I read that maybe like Alan was going to be in there. Is that a role I could do? Have you cast that yet? And within 5 minutes, she emails him back and says, "Hey, I'm going to be on Zoom for like the next hour. So just click this link whenever you're ready." And so he clicks on the link immediately, and they just talk for the next hour. And then he was Alan after that. And I just love stories like that, where it's just, like two people just, like because of like one connection, it's just like, "Oh, I want to be in your movie. I would love for you to be in my movie." And then boom, it's done. And yeah, he was so great. And I love that he wasn't just like a cameo. Like he actually had stuff to do. He moved the plot forward. It would have been very easy to make that character like the sugar daddy, where they're just kind of wave and acknowledge that he's there.
Yes. Also a figure I didn't know existed.
It's not actually sugar daddy. It's Sugar's daddy.
That's right. Yes. That is a very, very key.
I am floored that made it to shelves.
I guess so. But, the thing is, I think that there's one performance I want to ask about, and that's Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell, much like Michael Cera, you're going to get Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell, I think, works very well, but there is always going to be a part of me that's going to be very interested in maybe what somebody else could have done with it, to be a little more like Ryan Gosling, a little more earnest with it. There are certain times where it's too obvious that Ferrell's in on the joke, and Gosling doesn't appear in on it. Like he's playing it where he's not in on the joke. Therefore, it's funnier.
It's tricky also with Ferrell because he's the funny man, but he kind of needs to be the straight man to make us kind of buy into what's happening, because ridiculous stuff is going on. And I would have loved to seen Lance Reddick as the CEO.
Oh, wow. That would have been a great casting choice. That would have been a lot of fun.
Like, to be fair, we had a previous episode where we talked about all the great ways that Lance Reddick could do anything.
And I'm just continuing that on. But he can deliver that like straight-laced CEO delivery, but also being like, so Barbie showed up, and just you believe him. You believe everything he's saying on how ridiculous it is.
I could see him hitting the Ryan Gosling note.
Yeah,
I'm playing scenes in my head right now, and I'm like, I'm doing it too. That would have been fantastic. That would have been fan-freaking-tastic.
Damn it.
Well,
I'm pissed at you, Darren. I'm pissed at you for even suggesting that, because it's so amazing.
I mean, it's, again, like you said, all he did was sprinkle some Lance Reddick on it.
That's all you got to do.
It's all you got to do.
We got to that's got to become a thing in the show. Like next movie, we're going to be like, who could have Lance Reddick played and improved? What role? I mean,
just about anybody.
Welcome to House of Reddick.
Now we go for our Lance Reddick segment, where we talk about which role of this movie should have been played by Lance.
I'm sold.
But like Darren, you're absolutely right. Like both of you, both John and Darren, the Will Ferrell is the funny guy. He plays the funny guy. He's in on the joke, and so he kind of nudges and winks and everything like that. And that actually, I think that not his bit and some of the real world stuff knocks it down a peg for me. Like it kind of knocks down a star for me. Like before, like just to reveal a little bit, I understand that you had to have some weirdness in order for them to actually get to the real world. I get it. Okay, I get it. And the jokey stuff was fun, like when they flipped the car, and like when, like, and it's all kind of jokey, but it's not slapstick. When Barbie was getting chased in the Mattel headquarters and they're like going around the cubicles, that's slapstick. That completely took me out of it.
What it violates too is it made the real world more like the toy world.
Exactly.
And so that sort of the conceit gets confused, and that I think is the bigger problem, where it's like, I know what they're trying to do there, but I almost wonder if that's some sort of way that they were able to make Mattel more comfortable with them being lampooned.
I was
To
going to
make
say
it zanier
that's
like that.
because Mattel is the in between. Like, if anybody is going to be more wacky from the real world, it's Mattel. They're the bridge. So I can kind of buy into that. But I like your point too, John, of, if Mattel is completely tongue in cheek, it's easier for them to kind of laugh at themselves in signing off on the plot.
Yeah, I think it makes it yeah. But as part of that Mattel thing, America Ferrera comes in. She got a due amount of praise for this. She was nominated for an award too, right? Wasn't she? Or
I can't remember. I honestly can't remember.
I don't follow the Oscars. I just remember her name being mentioned a bit.
She at least got a lot of praise for it. I think like the entire reason why she got the praise and also any kind of noms was because of that speech.
It's saying Gosling and Ferrera earned nominations for the Academy Awards.
Hey, there you go. Yeah. I think everybody was so focused on Gosling being nominated that I think America was a little pushed off to the side, unrightly so.
And here's where I go a little bit controversial, I guess, is that, well, the scene that everybody talks about where she gives the big monologue. I had a flash in my brain the first time I saw it and the second time, I saw it when I rewatched it, and Tristan, you'll get the joke, I know, because you've watched Futurama as much as I have, and Darren, I think you have too, of the robot devil at Fry's Opera. You can't just have characters going around saying how they feel. That makes me angry. It's not a poorly written speech. It's not a poorly performed speech. It's that the character is telling me all of these things, but I didn't really see her go through that struggle in specific. And I think that's where the screenplay doesn't do itself any favors. And that's where I think the structure gets a little overly ambitious, and maybe some things could have been pared down in an effort to let me connect with that character more and understand more of what she had gone through, as opposed to, I know we see her in flashes. I know that Barbie suddenly pieces together. It's the mom who's influencing me. And that's all beautiful. But that speech instead comes across as just a well-performed monologue, as opposed to an emotional resonance for me. So I know that might be controversial, but that's where I stand with it.
No, I'm with you. I feel the exact same way. And you've done a lot to kind of preface that. Yeah, like it's controversial. Like not a lot of people admit it, but yeah, like when I heard the speech, I got what they were doing. And I was like, yeah, there is a lot of dichotomies. There is a lot of contradictions in being a woman. And from what I've experienced vicariously through my wife and my sister and my mother and everything like that. And so I got what they were trying to say, but I had that Futurama moment where it was just like, you can't just, it felt so heavy handed. That was the point in the movie where the sledgehammer hit my head. And I think that might be one of those situations where I just have to go, that speech was not written for me. And I think I have to admit that I was not the main demographic for that speech. As a moviegoer, just a casual, generic moviegoer, that's where I felt the hammer on the head. But, obviously that speech struck a chord with individuals. And, like we joked about last week about three guys talking about Little Women, I think this is that moment for me. Is three guys talking about Little Women in regards to America Ferrera's speech.
Yeah. I mean, I always have a difficult time with it because like we're always breaking down the movies and it's just sort of like objectively looking at it. And it's like I think it's also a fair point though, which I think you're getting at here, where it's like there are plenty of movies where somebody else might, and it's not even a male female thing, but somebody else might look at a movie I'm watching and they're like, why are you watching this? This is bad. I'm like, yeah, I know it doesn't work for you, but it works for me.
But it's
sort
a
of thing.
Riddell family classic. So
Exactly.
we watch it every week.
Well,
There you
John,
go.
you and I were talking just yesterday, and I said I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a family favorite." What was it?
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh, it
at
was
this
it was
point.
it was Maverick. It was Richard Donner's Maverick.
Oh, that's right. Richard Donner's Maverick is great. It's one of the rare Richard Donner movies where he figured out how to end a movie. That's a very big thing. Very big thing. I was happy for him in that moment.
Like John brought it up, and I was like, Riddell family favorite. That's right. That's right. That's right.
But see, that's just like nostalgia. It tips the scale because each of us have a scale in us that can be tipped by our own experiences. So that's definitely how it goes.
Well, I mean, I think that's also getting back to the structurally thing. I think that is one of the reasons that Ken winds up stealing the show a little bit is his arc. I'm with him through it. I would have wanted to be with America Ferrara through a little bit more of her arc. And I would have sacrificed some of the Ken stuff for that. And so I consider that a screenplay failing more than anything else, unless there's like an hour of footage sitting on the floor where I could sit down and be like, well, objectively, I think. But, and I think that's the thing that I think is nice about the movie is while we do have some heavy-handed moments, I think that there's a tinge of universality to it because Ken's arc gives, something to the male audience as well about Ken cracking under the pressures to behave a certain way as a man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very important, I think, counterpoint to what Barbie's going through and what they're talking about, where it's like, it's not a both sidesism sort of thing, but it's a thing where it's like, there are pressures that Ken is going through. They're not the same. And he enjoys a little bit, his pressures are, reaping the benefits sort of angle or however you want to put it sort of thing. But like, it's still there. And I think that's why the movie winds up playing more than for just its intended audience. I think that's another reason Ken, winds up helping the film find a broader audience that maybe it was even searching for at first.
No, I think that's really solid. I never really thought of that before. Darren, I want to ask you about the overall message of the film. Because, like John touched on it a little bit where, we see Margot Robbie's Barbie become a real woman. And, all of the Barbies are brainwashed by the patriarchy. And it's not until they understand the pain of being a woman that they snap out of it. And, with that kind of message and with the, you have people who've never seen it who hate it and say it's just men bashing. And then you have people who've seen it and love it and defend it or ignore it or say, oh yeah, I don't care. Darren, where do you fall on that spectrum?
Yeah, it's a really nuanced movie because at its core, it is a message movie. It has something to say. And like we said, sometimes it's saying it with a sledgehammer and sometimes it's saying it with nuance. But I feel like at times I'm going to talk in circles because you can say things one way, but you have to kind of loop around on the reverse. So with the message that is obviously coming through, I talked about this with my wife and as we kind of chatted before, I have a son and a daughter. Cards on the table, I am not going to have them watch this movie for a while. I'm not banning it from the house. I'm not throwing away a copy, but they're not old enough yet, I think, in my view as their father, to absorb these concepts, especially how movies can very easily tell a message and push a message. So for an example with Barbie, and the speech, that is something that is experienced by many women, but not all women. And it is trying, I don't know if it's trying to say all women experience this or all women feel this way. But on the man's side, when my wife was talking to me, she said, when I think of men in my life, she's like, I think of you. I think of, my father and your father and just for those of us that have been blessed with good male role models, like I'd much rather lift up that foundation than make a joke at, the real struggles that gender faces. And you can't get away with that with this movie because it is trying to be a message movie. And I'm not saying it shouldn't. It's just as a message movie, it's not like, oh, it's a Barbie movie. Barbie movies at that level are like the animated. This is trying to say something and trying to communicate something. So all that to say, I want to make sure my kids are exposed to those positive aspects of being a woman in our society and being a man, of having a community and having good examples. Not to say that doesn't exist and there aren't problems, like you said in the beginning, Tristan, that there aren't people that feel this way. But yeah, it's kind of like when you're watching a movie for the first time and you don't know where it's going to go. I didn't know where this was going to go. Like, it's happy Barbie land, and then you're in the real world and you're kind of everything's turning on its ear, and Barbie's very fish out of water and trying to, navigate all of that. So, like I said, I knew I was going to be talking back in circles, around to my points. But again, like you said, there are things that come across in this movie that are not aimed at me, are not aimed at my experience, that are going to resonate better. But as far as, I'm concerned, it was an enjoyable movie. It was a fun movie. It was a well acted movie, but it can't be a Barbie movie. It chose to be the message movie. And so that's kind of how I have to accept it and balance it.
I think I get what you're saying there, Darren. And before we recorded, I went ahead and spoke to the missus, and I was like, yeah, Barbie, and her general reaction to it was like, yeah, it was good. I really liked it. I'd like to watch it again, sort of thing. But she wasn't enamored of it to the point, like, she loved going and seeing it with the kids.
Waving the Barbie flag. It's not her identity now.
Basically, she thought it was fun, and she enjoyed, she did enjoy the speech, because she's like, yeah, hey, but she wasn't like, fists in the air. It wasn't a call to action for her, sort of thing. I got, and the thing is, our youngest has seen it a couple of times, and all she sees is the pastels and the jokes, and that's it. That's all she cares about. So
it's not hitting her on that second level yet.
Completely over her head.
That's a fair point.
The middle child loves to razz me with it. She's like, "Are you Ken, Dad? Which Ken are you?" It's like, ha ha ha. And I go, "I'm Alan." But the
Podcast
oldest Ken paid me the, that's a doll that needs to come out. That will not be a well-selling doll. But I can say that my oldest paid me a great compliment after the first time I saw it, where I was talking about it, and her reaction was meh. I said, well, talk to me, kiddo. Let's chat this out. And we talked about it, and I was like, it was a little heavy-handed here and there. It's a blah, 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 blah. I go, and honestly, I don't think I've ever, and I know my dad wasn't like this, and she looked at me, and God bless her, she looked at me, she goes, yeah, I don't think that movie really had anything to do with you. It was more Grandpa's generation. And I was like, okay, I'll take that as a win. That works for me.
That's a huge win. Yeah. I would take that. Yeah, like you guys, like I spoke with my wife about it several times, and she is that one who's just like, no, this was a great movie. This is beautiful. Every single time she's watching, and she's seen it a couple of times now, and a couple times with our 7-year-old, and she cries every single time she sees the montage of home movies. Every single time, tears. I'm talking real, not just misty, tears. Every single time, and she's seen it multiple times. And she agrees with me that there's a few moments when it's like all of us, that it's heavy-handed, like the hammer is thrown down. But like our 7-year-old, like is kind of like your youngest, John. She just laughs at the jokes. She sees the pastels. She laughs at Ken. She laughs at Barbie. And I actually joked about how maybe we shouldn't take our 7-year-old to the theater, because I don't want her to think that being a woman is that crappy yet, but it turned out that, like she wasn't affected by the movie that much, and in that regard, like where you're worried, Darren, like she was not affected that way. But I totally understand why you wouldn't want to. To me, it wasn't. It's interesting because that's one of those heavy-handed things, but it's nuanced at the same time, because there's a couple different ways you can take it. Like, you can take it at face value, and again, Darren, this is not like a knock on what you said, because nothing that you said was wrong. But like, if you take it at face value, which a kid might, it's like, oh, men are bad and boys are bad and girls are put upon, and that's it. And like, that's it. But if you, in certain ways that I kind of took it is like, oh, they're not making fun of men. They're just trying to illustrate, to the extreme, the negatives of living in a patriarchy. And, it was surprising to me at the end, a pleasant surprise, or I should say an interesting surprise, that at the end, Barbie World or Barbie Land or whatever it's called didn't switch to a 50-50 system. It wasn't like, oh, well, like, we're all equals now. It's a utopia where men and women are treated equal. They're like, oh, like even the kids are like, can we have some people on the Supreme Court? And they're like, no, like, and it's what it, like, to me, I took that as it's kind of echoing the reverse of our world, where, like, yeah, we've made some great strides, but we have a long way to go. And it's, Barbie Land is reflective, ironically, as the antithesis of our world. And so, it's not a men are bad, it's the patriarchy is insidious. And John, I loved what you said about Ken breaking under the trials that he goes through, and how he feels like he's always second best to Barbie, and how, like, and I even love that moment when he starts to cry, and, Barbie comes up to him and he's like, I'm a liberated man. I know it's okay to cry. Like, yeah, I absolutely love that. But I think we need to start wrapping up, because we've been going for a long time. And so I think we're about to hit an hour here. And I think we need to start wrapping it up, because it was, to me, like, I will go first with my rating. I was, like I said earlier on, I like the Will Ferrell jokey stuff at Mattel really took me out of it. And it really, I think, it knocked it down, because it just didn't feel like it fit with the rest of the movie. And there was a few times when some other stuff was heavy-handed, and it took me out of it, where I felt like Gerwig was trying to win some sort of like Twitter points with certain vocab, where it's just like calling Barbie fascist, and then saying, like, like, what did she say? Like, white savior Barbie, like, she's a doll. And then the one thing that I really, really friggin' hate, where they could have excised it completely and it would have made no frickin' difference to the movie whatsoever, but making the dad a moron, and then, then again adding another Twitter point with using the term cultural appropriation. It just, that right there, I was just like, you could have taken out every single one of those little things, and it wouldn't have hurt the message. You would have maintained your message completely. I would not have rolled my eyes so hard that I almost went unconscious. And it would have given, far right haters less fodder. And it doesn't help your cause whatsoever. And, now I'm getting deeper and deeper into it, but it just felt like adding stuff to add stuff to pat yourself on the back. And there was a little bit too much of that at times, but great performances, great story, great message, fantastic production design, a really nice album. It made me laugh, but some of those things really knocked it down. So I'm giving it a 3.5.
I think that's fair. If I may, Darren, I'm just going to jump right in. I will actually say, Tristan, that when you're talking about quote unquote trying to score Twitter points, I think your point's completely fair. And I know you might roll your eyes at this, but I would say the best example of it isn't just the use of a term, but it's inserting a joke at the expense of the Zack Snyder director's cut of the Snyder cut of Justice League. I promise you, nobody else in my family even knows what the hell that joke's about. that is such a niche joke that's an online only sort of thing, because it's like, if I walked out up and down my street right now, I mean, people would be mad because I'd be waking them up. But like if I walked up and down the street tomorrow when everybody's awake and I was like, hey, Zack Snyder, the Snyder cut, they'd look at me, they'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? And exactly, right? And that's the sort of, I think that's the best example. I think that there are...
I just want to go on record and say that
I know.
You know me, and I am heavily invested in the Snyder Cut. I love the Snyder Cut. I've seen it multiple times. It's a 4.5-hour film. I've seen it multiple times. I love it. I will watch it again. I lost it at that joke. It's one of my favorite jokes in the entire film.
I know it is. It can be.
But
you're a very specific audience. Okay? Very specific audience.
I'm okay being catered to.
But of course. But I can say that I can't really expound much more on what you laid out there, in terms of, there are moments where I just sort of disconnect. The second time I watched it, I was like, I just wanted to get through a part where I was like, okay, let's move it along. Let's move it along. And I started to feel the runtime, which was unfortunate. And so by watching it a second time, it actually knocked it down a little bit for me. And I wind up with a 3.5 as well. That doesn't take anything away from Gerwig. I go back to what I said earlier. I think that the screenplay needed another pass before, and granted, you could also trim stuff in editing, blah, 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 blah. But I think that there were just certain things about the screenplay that needed a little more refinement before they made it into production. She still deserves all of the praise for putting together something like this, specifically because you look at Lady Bird, then Little Women, and then this. She scaled up with the size of the production, the budget. There are a lot of directors who go Josh Trank with this sort of thing, and she didn't. She stood up to the pressure and she delivered something that audiences could plug into. So it is a well-deserved 3.5 and an enjoyable one.
Man, that's the first time anybody said the words Josh Trank in years. I think he perked up in bed just now.
Probably. There will not be a House of Trank. Spoiler alert.
Darren, what's your rating?
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I don't give half stars, so I've been up and down on my rating. I'm gonna give it a 3. And I was coming in. I was probably gonna give this a 2 for the majority of the conversation, just overall. But I mean, $1 billion aside, but no, that really is true though, in the fact that it is an accomplished movie and it pulled off a Barbie movie really well overall, which I think it has to get credit for. Like you said, she's ramping up I want to see what she does next. This isn't like turning me off to Greta Gerwig. It's not making me not want to see what she's going to be doing. I'm really curious what that will be. But overall, I mean, I think it's middle of the road in that regard. It wants to be above this world, but not of this world. It's just really interesting because there's no father figure. There's no good male character in this entire movie. And to say like, oh yeah, little girls don't need good male figures. They don't need fathers around them or brothers or uncles. And there's none. And again, not saying this movie has to fit that mold, but it doesn't. It doesn't even try to. And I think that's kind of a knock against it. And it just that, like you said, John, that last little thing of like, the dad can't even get the Spanish right. Like he has to fail at everything. And it's like, okay, sure. Why not? But yeah, all that to say, I'm giving it a 3. But I will definitely be following her career with great enthusiasm.
Now, what we're doing, that closes the House of Gerwig for now. But we're, as John was saying, we're not doing House of Trank, but we are doing something a little bit more unique, or I should say not as well known, definitely not as well known as Greta Gerwig. Darren, what are we doing or starting next week?
Oh, I'm really excited. We are moving to the house of Stuart Baird, one of my favorite films. A lot more explosions than Barbie, but it's going to be a fun ride. We're jumping in with Executive Decision 1996 and everything that is entailed here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.